Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This block is called Jelly Roll Twist. It finishes at 8.5 inches. Finishes at an odd size because this block is part of the pattern Jelly Roll Twist from the Fat Quarter shop. There'll be a code here you can scan to download the full instructions for a quilt. And the quilt in the instructions finishes at 51 inches by 60 inches, and it requires 34 strips at 2.5 inches times the width of fabric and 42 squares at 5 inches. If you have a jelly roll set or you have charm squares, then you can use those for this quilt. If you don't have access to jelly rolls or charm squares, you can cut your own. What I do when I have fabric left over and I've got, at least 2.5 inches times the width of fabric, I'll just cut my own jelly roll strips, 2.5 inch strips, and just keep them in a container. So that way I have a wide variety of strips. Also the same thing with 5-inch squares. You can, if you have big chunks left over, you can cut your 5-inch squares. If you're using AccuQuilt, you have the 2.5 inch strip cutter you can use, and there is a die that will cut 5-inch squares. So then you can use those jelly rolls and charm squares for a lot of free patterns out there. This is the diagram, and this is 4 blocks set block to block. I went ahead and did the patches in case you don't have the strips or the charm packs. So you can make this quilt if you want to just cut patches. So patch A is a 2-inch by 8.5 inch finished rectangle. We'll cut 2.5 inches by 9-inch rectangles, and we'll need 1 patch of 2 different fabrics. Patch B is a 4.5 inch finished square. We cut 5-inch squares, and we need 1 patch of the light fabric. Patch C is a 2-inch by 4.5 inch finished rectangle. We cut 2.5 inch by 5-inch rectangles, and we'll need 1 patch of each of 2 different fabrics. So in here you'll want to have the 4 accent fabrics and your 1 background fabric. For each fabric, here are the cutting instructions. What we're going to do is make 2 different strip sets. Then we're going to cut 1 strip set into 5-inch segments, and we're going to cut the other strip set into 9-inch segments. Then we'll sew it together with the charm square, the 5-inch square. I just reached into my scrap bin of jelly rolls that I cut myself, and I've already sewn them together and pressed the seams open. So we'll take one of these, and here's my 5-inch square, and I cut these from my scraps as well. So from this one, we're going to cut 5-inch segments. So I'll get my ruler. I'm going to cut 2 5-inch segments. So what I'm doing, I'm going to cut 2 segments. So I'm lining up the 10-inch mark because I'm going to cut 1 at 5 and 1 at 5. That's 10 inches. And then I'm taking one of the lines on the ruler and lining it up along the seam line. So I'll cut this, and then I'll slide this down to the 5-inch mark right here, and then line up the seam line. So this way you can cut 2 without stopping each time and repositioning your ruler. So we have these 2, and I really only need 1 for this 1 block, but I went ahead and cut 2. For this one, we'll cut a 9-inch segment, and I'll just cut 1 of those. So I place my 9-inch mark here, and then I line up one of my ruler lines on the seam line. And I'll just put these over for the rest of the quilt. What you'll want to do is just go ahead and cut all you can from your strip sets. Now we'll take one of these 5-inch long segments and stitch it to the square and press the seams open. Now we'll take the 9-inch segment and stitch it to the top like that and press the seams open. Here's what the Fat Quarter shop pattern looks like. It's so simple. All of their patterns are very simple and easy to understand. And here is a close-up of how you put the blocks together. Very simple quilt. And here is our finished block. This finishes at 8.5 inches. It's 9 inches right now. And just so simple. Thank you for watching.